Well, Alejandro,
Cool.
thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It is an absolute pleasure to speak to you. First things first, we'll start this off nice and simple. How has your day been so far?
Well, days been busy actually. We didn't expect this amount of activity lately, so a lot of things to answer, things to follow up on, that, but all fun stuff. Like it's busy, but it's very nice for us. So I'm really happy about that.
You release an album, the work doesn't stop anymore. You don't just get to sit back and chill and enjoy the buzz around it anymore. You got to keep working.
Indeed, and you always think like, well, we're in the mastering stage. We finally finished all this big effort. We're gonna be done, and then we're really gonna chill, and it never happens. So or it's the beginning of the next phase, then it's a lot of work as well. But it's really positive work, so I'm really happy.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that too. Ultimately, if you keep them busy, that can only ever be a good thing. And we are 1/3 of the way through 2023. So far, would you say this has been a good year for you?
I definitely think it's a good year for us, especially from where we were coming. This is probably one of the best years of my life at this moment.
That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on the release of your exceptional new album, Camino de Brujos. I hope I'm saying that correctly. It's been out for a week now. How have you been finding the reaction to it? Not just necessarily from a review perspective, but from listeners on social media and so on.
Yeah, well, we get mixed reactions, and I love that because we were not out there to make a record that would just simply satisfy the overall, it would be a happy medium of everything to be, we're not really out there to make people happy. We are really out there to make ourselves happy. So we knew it was gonna be mixed reactions, and people or they love it or they hate it, but nothing in between. And I think that's a good sign because that's exactly what we were aiming to do, to make a statement of what we are. And we knew that we were not going to be like, compliant with the trends and, the things that are popular out there. We're completely aware of that. And regardless, we just follow, our gut feeling, and this is what it brought out.
Did you have a vision when you initially set down this path of what you want this particular record to be?
This time around, we did have a vision. I mean,
Hmm.
normally we are more of like, okay, let's just play with ingredients and see what comes out. And in this case, we didn't have really the final style like figured out because that's impossible. We had as previous albums, we just had the ingredients. The ingredients changed, and then some of the ingredients also change in proportions. Were things that we were dragging around for a very long time, and now we just shift and we have a little bit more of thrash and a little bit more of death metal and a little bit less
Hmm.
of grunge and a little bit, so the proportions change. But what we really had in mind when we set up to do this record is in the production. We had an idea. I was like, we are really, I mean, at least, yeah, I could speak for the rest of the band. I think we are all kind of like done with the overproduced sounding metal that is became like the new normal, So I think that we wanted to do something completely in the opposite direction, like I mean, I was the producer of the record, and then we were aiming to have that feeling that we got in the 90s where we got those records coming from Rob Runner back in the day and everything. And it was mostly thanks to one person, actually, is the Andy Wallace production. This is the real reason why many of us love a lot of records that we have at home. He's invisible. He's being always under the cover of a producer, but he's the mixer. He's the guy that made this sound that we love so much, from Slayer to Rage Against the Machine to whatever. And we were set to really go for that sound, even though
Hmm.
with a big distance, is such an icon of production, So he's our hero. We're not going to reach our hero, but at least we were walking towards that direction, to the bringing the human back into the metal albums, because the human aspect seems to be gone. It seems to be on the way.
But how much of that vision, and in particular the journey as you went down this pathway, was changed and adapted by events and scenarios that occur around you over this period, even if it was for better or worse?
Yeah, well, production was set, as I said, from start. We were going to make a record that sounded like real people playing real instruments,
Mm.
and that was really the aim when we started. And I think some of the songs really took a turn into the more melancholic side because in the middle of, well, not in the middle, we were like probably at the beginning of the production of the album, we had really a lot of personal tragedy, my brother and I, during the pandemic, and we were nearly abandoning the whole band world. Basically, we were in a dark place, so
Mm.
we had to stop for a little bit. That's why this record took longer than what we had in mind at the beginning, and at a certain moment, we kind of like left it unattended. We were not really thinking that we were going to finish this record, left alone that we were going to be on stage ever again.
Mm.
So it took a while for us to recover from that. And well, everybody had hard times with the pandemic. We got really, really bad times to overcome. And after a while, when we had the energy again and the strength to really go back into rewriting or how to say taking where we left it, then I noticed that our music was a little bit slightly different.
Mm.
It had a different dimension. It was not only angry, metal that we wanted to write, but something that had a lot. It needed to be an outlet for our emotional state, and a lot of that got printed in it. There are places where you could really feel like, okay, this is really what was inside our hearts at the moment.
Did it work for you personally, though? Did it feel quite cathartic? Were you able to expel a certain level of demons from you by doing this?
Yes, it was actually probably is the only reason I'm still alive. It's like writing music is a lot of us in the music industry and the music business are there not because of money, because it's not great, and we know that, that we could just follow another career path, but it's because it's really our therapy, and this is the only way I know to how to cope and survive difficult times, and it worked. Definitely it worked.
Along the way, each part of the phase, so from writing, recording, producing, all of that, what for you then was the most challenging aspect of working on this record?
Mastering.
Why?
Well, because to be honest, I mean, I will never advise anybody to work on their own music. I never do it actually. I never try. Not It's not really what I like. I
Mm.
have it a lot easier when I work for different clients and I work on their albums. I'm very objective. Now with this, I'm not objective at all. So it is a really difficult thing to do, to detach from being the singer or the guitar player of this band to try to be the producer, and then mixing was like not as hard as I thought it was going to be. I have to be honest. But then in the mastering stage, I was completely done with the record. I could not
Oh.
hear any differences. But we had to deliver, and we had a deadline. For our label. We were offered, people really well, good qualified people, but because we had this vision in mind, and actually the people that we wanted once was there were only two people that could have done this record in our eyes for our vision. That was Andy Wallace or Stanley Suarez. And Stanley Suarez is a good friend of mine, and he was actually the person that we wanted on the record because he had the same vision that we had. This raw, realistic view on music, and he's great, but he was really busy at the time. He had other things that he needed to put his mind into. Like he works for Megadeth, so as you can imagine,
Mm.
he's a busy guy, so he couldn't do it. The other person was Andy Wallace, and it's completely out of my budget. So we were like, okay, we don't have the means to reach that, and then the rest of the producers, with all respect, is not what we wanted.
Mm.
There's really successful, I mean, if I see, they're very successful producers, very successful mixers, but metal nowadays, it doesn't speak to us or to our vision. So we didn't want to go in there. So we were forced basically. Then, you know, then on the mastering stage, we wanted, yeah, we wanted impossible. We wanted George Marino to do this, and but he passed away sadly a few years back, and he's like really who mastered a couple of the records that we love. So we were forced really to like, okay, we wanted it to be that vision that we had when we had the first idea. We're gonna have to do it ourselves. And then that objectivity was lacking, so I needed to depend a lot on the opinion of the guys. You know, the guys was really helping me to really discern from my self illusions of things that will hear, you know, because I heard the record too many times. And then we landed at the end, and it was very hard. I have to be honest, like I was not even sure of what we were putting out until I finally saw, okay, the people are getting the message. We did an honest job. This is really the band. It sounds like a band playing. So
You never want to do that again.
hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Yeah, that's the important word. I completely understand what you're saying about the difficulties you run into there as well. Would you call this album, is it fair to call this album an encapsulation of that moment for the band? E.g., it's not necessarily ever going to be reflective of what you might do in the future.
Yeah, well, this time, of course, we get a big shift because of, you know, because of change of the lineup, you know,
Yeah.
like my brother and I, we do have like our roots in thrash metal, you know, and actually we heard a lot of thrash, death, and grunge, you know, those are the things that we are really in love with. At a certain moment, because we mixed this at the moment with the people that we were playing with, in a certain proportion, people labeled us as a sludge doom band, you know, because we had a lot of sludgy or what they considered in that genre, but we never thought that we were a sludge or a doom band. We were playing just, you know, what came from the heart, from the things that we heard, with the possibilities we had, right?
Yeah.
So now what's changed is like Jerry, our drummer, he's a punk drummer, right? And he plays a lot of the fast, aggressive punk. And we love that too. So we have different tools and we need to cook again, right? So we get different ingredients. We don't have, I don't know, rosemary, but we have now oregano. So well, let's do this with this new ingredient. So we had, Jerry is a very violent punk drummer, and we love Slayer. We love all of that. We just never had the possibility to go that direction. So now we have it. So that's one of the ingredients. And of course, Paolo, uh, you know, he's the bass player of Sepultura, and you know, he's had a long career playing fast, aggressive, you know, thrash metal tracks. So he brought all of that and pushed us to, you know, to have that kind of a tempo that we were not normally jumping into very quick. And we just put it all together now with the same ingredients, but it doesn't land into sludge anymore because now we have a bigger aspect that is more related to punk, and we had more people loving thrash metal. You know, like now Paolo and Juan and me are a majority in the band, so kind of we push more towards that, and then yeah, probably it's a similar recipe of what we had, but because the ingredients change in proportion, then we end up in a different thing. And well, of course, I think that also is this passion that we have for classic rock, especially Paulo and me. You know, Paulo likes a lot of the 70s bands, and me too, and we are very admiring all these bands from the past. And then when we get together, we do a lot of listening, and you know, we drink wine and listen to good bands, and we've done this many years in the past. And now, well, the difference was like, well, now we're jamming to make songs, and these jams ended up in the record. And we have a lot of these moments in which the band morphs into a 70s rock psychedelic band that just, you know, plays or instruments are playing in reaction to each other. Basically, it's more like a loose thing, and that's what brought this record to this type of sound that we have now.
It's clearly working, because I tried to pay attention to the last week to keep an update, because I knew we were going to do this interview and I wanted to understand exactly not just what the listener base wanted, but also potentially if there would be an influx of people who might be discovering you for the first time. And I noticed there actually was. There are a large amount of people across many different countries finding you out for the first time based off this album, which is fascinating in itself. Why do you think that is? What is it about this record for a new person that's kind of appealing?
Yeah, well, I think it's the returning to our roots with enough luggage to to kind of like take decisions based on what we want and not caring, you know, and
Mm,
making a record a lot with based a lot in friendship and in just, you know, we really want to please each other with what we want to play, you know, and we're not that probably our age as well, you know, we're not the youngest anymore, and then we really want to play music that we really love. And we have heard many bands in the past. So, you know, we kind of like now we're so sure, like, hey, we're going to go there even if nobody wants it. And even if nobody will like this, we're going to do this. And even if we have everything, if maybe if people will label this that way, we don't care. We go. And that has a big freedom, you know, it's a freedom
mm,
that I don't think we will let go anymore. And also the need for experimenting has changed. We don't have that need anymore because actually people say like, well, you used to play Doom and Sludge and all that. But our first record was thrash metal, was really violent, right? And then we played that and then we're like, okay, we done it, you know, nice. This was one thing that I wanted to get done. It sounds aggressive, it sounds fast, it sounds all the things that we wanted. Now we need to experiment. And then we went into experiment for 10 long years into these albums that have sometimes really very long, you know, atmospheric tracks. And
mm,
we were exploring different ways to make dissonance, different ways to make
of
darkness
course.
that were not based on a palm muting chan 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 riff. You know, we wanted to go somewhere and experiment all that. And I think that period ended because we grab what we learned from it. We don't need to experiment that long. We know what we liked of that time. You know, those 10 years still give us some things that we use today. And then Paulo did that with a different band, with
Yeah.
Sepultura. What do you want? You know, it's like it's an icon of South American thrash metal. Is like the band that you know, the band that brought the sound and everything. So he doesn't need to experiment in that direction. He experiments on the 70s rock direction. That's what
Mm.
he does with us. The other parts are very familiar to him. Like we played fast, you know, riffing, and for him it's like, yeah, that's my everyday, you know. And Jerry, he's really, as I said, he's a punk, violent drummer that can groove, and he, you know, he's just doing another day at the job. You know, basically, is what he loves and what he does. So now it's very natural. It's not like we gotta experiment. No, we just play what we want.
And that authenticity does come through, because if you were trying to fake it, you would be caught out. It would come through in the sound. People would recognize it and notice it. So the fact that it does, as an album, feel so authentic to what you want to do, what you're choosing to do, and how relaxed you are about it, I think that's why it is resonating with new people who are discovering you, as well as those who have been on a journey too along the way as well, and who are enjoying what you're doing.
I also think that, to be honest, it's funny because I read reviews that said like, well, the album sounds the music I like, but it's underproduced. It sounds like it's not finished. And then on
Mm.
the other reviews, I hear like, whoa, this sounds so crystal clear, and I could hear everything. So I think also it has a refreshing factor that is not over polished. And I think the people that could get or understand that message, that this is like a realistic album that you could actually imagine the people playing, is like comparing, I don't know, the movie Jaws with the Megalodon somewhere in the 2000 something. You know, it's like, see, it's like computer generated graphics versus a very realistic 70s, you know, robot in the water. You know, I think we are Jaws. We're raw, we're not polished, we're not perfect, but we are more realistic in some ways than many things that are, you know, the new offerings. So I think some people, at least from the emails that we have received, have gotten that as a as something that is refreshing. Even though it's not perfect, we're not perfect. We're terrible musicians, by the way, sometimes. But we just, you know, it works. You know, we kind of like complement each other and we landed. It's like, you know, you got skaters that are really good at landing tricks, and some of them that landed almost falling. Well, we almost fall the trick, but we landed at the end, you know. So that gives some excitement as well, I think.
I love your analogies. It's fantastic. We should say, going back to the Jaws Megalodion one, only one of those movies is going to stand a test of time. Only one still exists and is considered an icon, and we know which one it is.
Hopefully we're on that path. But hopefully, I don't know. I really don't know, but at least I'm happy. I mean, we are very happy with the record. We are, I never been this happy of hearing it and say yes. It's the right imperfection. We are not using any Instagram filters. This is our face. This is with our imperfections, with our things. That's how we are, and then I like that feeling.
Normally, I would love a statement like that to be, that is the perfect way to end this interview. What wonderful words you said and what genuine honesty you bring. But I do want to just throw this one at you. And this is basically about getting your name out there. So, of course, beyond the borders of South America is a major challenge, spreading the name across the world. For you, what is the biggest challenge that you face with getting your name, even after a decade, around the world?
Well, I think that the world is overloaded right now with music. So the amount of things, the releases per day is incredible. So it is a completely different ballgame than back in the day. You get like record labels that were kingmakers, and that doesn't even happen anymore. Like a lot of the labels, they just want a king that is already crowned. It's just they don't even have the power to be the kingmaker anymore, because who are you to make me listen to this? Of course, money is a big aspect to making a band being promoted. They have to have a budget for that and everything. So the opportunities are completely different, and that's why a lot of the bands, or they become in Instagram or TikTok phenomena, and they have this viral aspect, this amount of followers and everything that happened because they did something related with their social media activity. And then the labels will help them very quick and say like, wow, that's already working, so let's go for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine, but that wouldn't work with a band like us, because we're busier with trying to find the perfect snare sound that fits on our vision, and we're nerdy enough to just go there and just, we're not busy with that. We're not really trendy, and we will never be trendy. We're out of fashion in that way. We're just the regular guys, that are there and play in music for the heart. We it's not nothing wrong with the people that are very popular and successful in their social media. That's the new game, but maybe we're too old for that new game. So it's just not us. And then we were, when the chances were like the only way to make it was like, or being a viral hit that our label will grab, or you had the right looks, and you were perfect, so your label could think like, well, maybe we can invest some money in this. It was not going to happen, right? So if it happens, it happens out of chance, right? Of course, I mean, we can't say this and not mention the fact that now we have a huge name in metal history, pushing all the way with us, as Paulo, who's a big friend of ours,
Of course.
right? And he's probably where he was moved also by the fact that he knows us for many years, and he knows that we never abandon and we're not gonna let this go. And he just said, well, let's make it happen. Let's just go in there, let's make music, and let's bring that album out. And that's gonna help all the way. It's probably one of the reasons why people grab that album the first time to do a review, right? But I love the reviews that we like the most, and the reviews that Paulo likes the most is the reviews of people that have no idea that actually he plays in the band. Because then you realize there's some honesty in the message, and then the reason was like they picked it up was maybe unrelated to that, and they don't realize that he's in the band, and he give it a fair chance. And then you have other reviews that are actually really negative just because he is in the band and they have an expectation of how we should sound. And it's a world that is difficult to how to say, to understand. I mean, we're in transition period as well as a music industry, from the time where CDs were sold until now. Even if it's 20 years, it's not done yet. So who will know?
And we are coming out of, obviously, a lengthy pandemic period, which kind of put the industry into even more of a mess. If you're still alive and you're still surviving and you're able to release music as you've just done with a new album, that is a damn good place to be, I think. Trying to navigate the chaos of social media. Yeah, it's a lot to ask.
It's a lot, indeed. We'll see. I mean, we're happy that some people have discovered it on their own, and then we're happy with the help of people like you. Like a lot of the independent media is reaching out to us, and they're helping us. And you guys are really who are spreading the word for us. And that's probably how it used to be back in the day when I listened to those first bands that I fell in love with. So I do like this process much more than if we will have been entered through the big door of a big push of on a huge tour like bigger bands normally will enter the field. We're entering the right way. Like I learned, I remember the first time I heard Pestilence, for instance, a death metal band that I used to love. It was like that. It was a friend of mine with a recorded tape. Oh, have you listened to this? These guys are great. And then you know you slowly get the word around, and that's how we are growing at the moment, and I love that. Feels right.
Yeah, I'm old enough to have cassettes handed back to me in a day from bands as well. So I know exactly what it's like. It's still, we're dealing with word of mouth now, but just happens to be word of mouth spread online as much as humanly
Yes,
possible.
yes.
But it's worth talking about. It's worth championing. Camino de Brujos. It was literally, it's a week old today as of time of recording. 1 week out, it is available to stream and listen to. Alejandro, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thanks a lot for the opportunity. Really, really. Thank you guys for all the support.
Thank you very much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please help us out by giving us a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button. If you really liked what you saw, consider donating to keep the website and channel running by buying us a coffee via our coffee page or picking up some merch from our Big Cartel store. You can check us out on gbhbl.com as well as via our social media, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, as well as listen to our interviews via SoundCloud, Apple Music and Spotify. Just search for GBHBL. Games, horror and heavy metal. What else is life for?